Donc c'est In C de Terry Riley.
In C by Terry Riley.
So In C is written in 1964 by Terry Riley. The premise behind the case
Terry Riley, donc il fait partie d'un peu de cette mouvance.
In the key of C? C major?
Welcome to Tell Me About In C, the podcast about Terry Riley's minimalist musical masterpiece. And I'm your host, Wesley Cheney, and I'm always keeping my eye out for new versions of In C. And recently when I logged into Apple Music on my iPhone, it showed me one that said In C for 35 violas, which got me really excited. I looked online, found Simone Libralon, got in touch with him, and Simone's my guest for today's episode of Tell Me About In C. So, Simone, 35 violas. I was listening to it, and I wasn't hearing 35 all at the same time, but tell me how you came up with that album title.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here talking about one of the most exciting pieces I have encountered in my artistic and research journey. And, my first encounter with this piece actually didn't happen in a concert hall, but it happened in a design context.
Oh.
The viola is my instrument. For this reason, I thought, okay, I have to make my version only with violas.
Yeah.
But, 3 years ago, I was working on a research project with a design museum here in Milan about the relationship between music and design. And we were exploring how structures function, not only aesthetically, but socially and behaviorally. And at some point in C, appeared almost naturally in that conversation, because what struck me immediately was that it isn't just a piece of music, but it's a system, I think.
Yes.
So it's a modular structure, like good design, actually. In which you have simple elements, clearly defined rules, but the final result depends entirely on how people inhabit that structure.
Yes.
And so my first experience with In C wasn't emotional in the traditional sense. It was almost architectural,
Oh, okay.
I was fascinated by the clarity of the framework and by how much freedom exists inside such a minimal set of instructions.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this is not just music. This is a living design for collective behavior.
Yes.
Oh
my gosh. That's, I gotta agree with you. Just giving a little more background for our listeners, what is your earliest musical memory? Was it the viola?
Yeah, if I have to think about my first musical memory, I think it's actually very simple. I remember being a child and being completely fascinated by sound. Not even, a specific piece, but just the feeling of vibration in the room or kind of, Yeah. I remember sitting close to an instrument and being almost hypnotized by it, by how something invisible could fill the space and change the atmosphere. So I didn't understand music yet, but I remember clearly that I felt it. And that feeling never really left me. So here we are.
So when did you conceive of recording your own album of In C on viola? When did that thought first come to you?
After this research, project I did with the Design Museum, I felt suddenly something very, very strong, and I really thought I have to do it as soon as possible.
Okay. So would you say that was like how much time elapsed between coming up with this idea and actually releasing the album?
I think really a lot. It takes quite a bit of effort, but I think it's completely worth it, because all that work pays off when the piece starts to take shape, when the whole thing comes alive. There's nothing like that moment. That is what makes InC so magical. But I have to say, I needed really a lot of time, a lot of practice, and a lot of effort. But I am incredibly happy with the result.
Okay. And is it just you playing viola, or do you have other musicians playing viola too?
No. Every voice is my viola. So I kind of multiplied myself 35 times.
Right. I did the same thing with ukulele during the COVID lockdown. So
okay.
And I had 13 ukuleles to choose from. So my goal was to use each ukulele for each phrase, for the most part. So it worked out pretty well that way. When you were recording, what was your setup like? Were you recording at home? Were you going into a commercial studio?
I was in a studio. In a studio. Yeah. Because it's my 5th recording, and so I always record my music in a studio.
Okay. And I'm assuming that you were using a digital audio workstation like Ableton or Logic Pro or something like that?
Not if you are asking about my way of recording this piece. I think I did something different this time. Okay. Honestly, I haven't performed it live in the way you can hear it on my recording, obviously, because there's only one me. We are not 35, but I can say that the version I recorded by myself, so multiplying myself 35 times on the viola, really became a kind of a performance. Yeah. And I was like creating my own little orchestra, layer by layer, phrase by phrase. And so, in a way, it became a very performative experience. Yeah. Also because 35 different versions of me that had to be coordinated and cooperating together in order to get a good result, and as a classically trained musician, stepping into something so free and open was, I have to say, a little scary. Yes. Because, you don't really have a score in the traditional sense. Yeah. You just follow the rules and your feeling. But at the same time, it was exhilarating because you start playing and suddenly I experienced really layer by layer being part of this living, breathing thing. You feel the energy of every layer, the tiny shifts, the little surprises. Yeah. And I have to confess, I remember moments where I thought, okay, this is completely out of control. and then everything would click in the next phrase. So kind of a magic happened that really was incredible, because at the same time it was chaotic, hypnotic, confusing and beautiful all at once. So I loved every second of it. I can say it was really an experience. Having
recorded in C myself, and I was using GarageBand on an iPad at the time. I started with the pulse. I had my pulse going and around I think 110 beats per minute. And then I would lay down a phrase and get a minute or so of that phrase and then loop it a couple times so it would be 3 minutes long. And then I would be listening to that phrase while I was recording the next phrase. What was your production technique like? Was it similar to that?
Yeah, I think it was similar because I recorded, first of all, the first voice. Yeah. All 53 patterns, and and then I recorded on that voice the other ones. Okay. So, in this sense, I always had a strong connection with what was going on, and my choice, what to me was more fascinating, was to have no pulse. Definitely.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, I think it's probably harder that way, but the result, I think, is so much more fascinating, stimulating, and emotionally powerful because you have to feel the music. So no chance. And for this reason, it was really interesting. I have to say, I didn't use loopers, but I considered the option of using it, and I think, okay, maybe is something that I have to do carefully, because loopers can be amazing because they let you expand textures and create layers you couldn't do live alone. But you have to be careful not to lose the energy. And so for this reason, in the end, I said, okay, if my pattern has to be, for example, 1 min with maximum concentration, I try to play it for 1 min without looping it. You know what I mean? Because I really, for me, the experience was so beautiful and so strong that really I wanted to try to feel the connection with the piece every single note, every single moment I was playing.
Yeah. I found the first couple of times that I performed in C live, I didn't use a looper, and while I had been used to playing for an hour or two non-stop, I was not used to holding the fingerings for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes at a time without moving my fingers. And I
understand. Some pattern is really hard, I have to say.
Yeah, especially once I made it to phrase 30, my hands were starting to cramp.
That's true. That's a problem of this piece, for sure.
Yeah, and normally, if I was playing at a bluegrass jam, I would be switching between 3, 4, 5, 8 chords every 5 or 10 seconds, and my hand would not be just holding that one position for so long. So that was a bit of a challenge for me, and that was actually one of the reasons that I decided to start experimenting with loopers a bit more. And I was like, okay, let's see how this will work myself. So, and now I use loopers for my so I can just play in C by myself. So how would you say in C has influenced you, Simone?
Well, I think it's really an incredible piece, and there's something about it that can really transport you somewhere else. That's incredible. Almost into a kind of otherworldly space, something not of this world. I don't know how to say, but I've felt that kind of abstraction only a few times in my life with music. And that was really incredible when I discovered it. So I really felt something that was constantly telling me, you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to experience it, and so on. Because when you are inside this piece, when you are inside in C, it is really like being pulled into a spiral. There's so much happening, so many small inputs, tiny shifts, overlapping patterns, and yet at the same time, it's hypnotic. You are completely absorbed. And what is fascinating is that you can't really step out of it. So once you are in, you are in. The only way out is when the piece actually ends. You know, this is incredible. And for me, that feeling of being suspended in time, but also constantly stimulated, has been very powerful, both as a listener and as a performer. So a big impact.
What is your favorite performance of In C to listen to or watch?
Okay, I have to say one performance that really sticks with me is the one by Bang on a Can.
Oh gosh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's just electric.
Mm-hmm,
The energy they create is really amazing. You can feel the ensemble breathing together, every little shift in timing.
Yeah.
Or texture becomes this living moment. And what I love about watching it is how you see In C as a kind of organism.
Right.
You can almost forget that it's structured. So the music feels alive, it's constantly moving, and every musician seems fully present in the moment. So I really like it.
So what would you say your favorite phrase is in C?
I think the number 35 because that phrase is really incredible, because in a way is completely different from the others, and yeah, and so I think I feel I think that pattern 35 is like the heart or the core of the whole piece. It's lyrical, first of all, and I think that is pretty close to my culture, because in Italy, we are famous for the opera. Italian, my language, it was the language of the opera for centuries, and so for this reason, I don't know, I think that maybe singing is part of my culture, and one of the most important aspects of thinking about music for me. And so this phrase 35 that is more lyrical than the others, I think is my favorite.
All right, final question, Simone. If you could ask Terry Riley any question, what would it be?
Oh wow, yeah, so many things. I think I'd love to ask about his process. So how he thought about repetition, freedom, and structure when he wrote it, and maybe just for fun, I'd ask, but if you were performing it today, would you do anything differently? It's amazing to think that something so simple on the page can create such a huge living world. So I just want to hear his thoughts on that. No, it was really my pleasure. So thank you so much again for having me. I was really happy to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tell Me About in C. If you love Terry Riley's minimalist musical masterpiece as much as Simone, I'd love to interview you and share your story with my fellow fans. Send me an email. My email address is friendwes@mac.com, and there's a link in the show notes. As DJ Pseudononymous, I host the radio show Radio Eclectica on WMMT 88.7 FM from Whitesburg, Kentucky on Fridays from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. You can stream Radio Eclectica on WMMT's website. There's a link in the show notes. I'll include, in addition to interviews with Appalachian musicians, I take deep dives into different aspects of music. Could be an album, a producer, a genre, an era, or even a technique. And I also host the podcast, Tell Me About Your Bike, a podcast about the meaning of life, the universe, and bicycling, where I ask fellow cyclists questions like, tell me about your first bike. Tell me about a time you were lost on your bike, and tell me about a ride you're looking forward to. Subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next episode of Tell Me About NC, when I'll be interviewing professional percussionist Evan Frangish about the joys of playing NC on marimbas. Copyright Rambling Ukulele Productions, 2026. Most rights reserved.